Live. We're live. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Just to get us started, I want to get us a little centered into this moment. And so, if you feel comfortable doing so, you can close your eyes or just soften your gaze. And I just invite you to take a deep breath in and exhale. And we'll take a moment to acknowledge each other in this room, and we bless the interactions that we will have together. We acknowledge the importance of community and the importance of belonging, and we just open ourselves up to learning new things. If something is for us, we can easily adopt it and bring it into our lives and our lifestyle. And so it is. All right. So good morning, everybody. We are going to be talking about the book Belong. In the book Belong, the subtitle is Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life. Did you want to say anything about the book? Okay. All right. And so there are a few definitions that we want to get started with this morning. These are definitions directly from the book related to belonging and community. So do you want to do belonging?
A feeling of deep relatedness and acceptance, a feeling of I would rather be here than anywhere else.
And community is a group of 3 or more people with whom you share similar values and interests and where you experience a sense of belonging. And so this book is by
Radha Agrawal.
Radha Agrawal. Yeah, see, that's why I didn't say it. And we want to get started with sharing a little bit about her story and why she wrote this book. We'll start off with a quote by her.
As I grew more passionate about creating a community, I learned that isolation and a lack of belonging were becoming a crisis.
All right. And we're going to do a really short, well, actually, let's go over a little bit about Radha first, and then we'll do a short video with Radha in it, just explaining herself. So Radha is a community architect, and she has developed a whole dance scene in New York City out of this desire to build community. And the book talks about 1 in 4 Americans having 0 friends to confide in. I mean, like, we're a part of Unity, so like I can't really imagine what that would be like. But to understand that 1 in 4 people do not have that sense of community where they feel that they can confide in another person, that to me is an astonishing number.
Yeah, and 1 in 3 Americans over the age of 65 is socially isolated.
Yeah. And another statistic is those over 85, the number increases to 1 in every 2 Americans. And that, to me, was also astonishing.
Over 90, you haven't got a chance.
I would say, you know what, though, if you're watching online or you are, getting closer to that age, Unity of Springfield seems like a really great place for you. We definitely serve that demographic, and I'm really proud of that, being a part of a community that is intergenerational, because we have very young people, and then we have I don't know what's a polite way of saying very old people.
Mature,
seasoned, wise, the wise ones of our community. And to me, that's why I like this community so much, because there is so much wisdom that has been developed, because we do get wiser. Well, I would hope most of us get wiser as we age. So we're going to do, we have another quote. Go ahead.
This was a huge wake-up call. I had never realized how vital community was for my health and happiness.
Yeah, and so another study found that isolation sets off a cellular chain reaction that increases things like inflammation. It suppresses the body's autoimmune response to disease, and so if you're lonely, we are sick.
But there are blue zones in Japan, Italy, and Costa Rica. They are the communities that live the longest. They attribute their health and longevity to strong family ties, enjoyable social engagements, regular exercise, and eating mostly vegetables, usually in the community.
I need to do more vegetables.
And it's fiber.
Yeah.
Fiber. When you get older, fiber is really important.
Praise the Lord. One of the things, though, when I was reading the book that I found really fascinating was American statistics, because we seem to be way behind the rest of the world when it comes to just the way that we interact with each other, especially, some of the words that we say to each other, the affirming words that we say to each other, or even physical touch. Like, we are way behind the rest of the world when it comes to physical touch, which we will talk about a bit next week. That creates oxytocin, which is a neuropeptide that allows us to enjoy life. And so one of the reasons why we're so sick and miserable, well, I say we, this is more generalized, but why so many people in America are so sick and tired and feel disconnected is simply because they're not getting the right kind of neuropeptides, because we were designed, or we evolved to experience that chemical. And so, but we will go into a lot more detail.
Yeah, we've got
next
lots
week.
of stuff to cover.
Yeah. And so we want to do just a really quick video. Let's see. Oh, there's so many options here. Okay, there we go. I did it so fast earlier. Okay.
I think for me, the thing that taught me the most was when I turned 30 years old and put myself in the movement, and I realized that I don't belong. And I realized that I didn't have friends with whom I could confide in. And that, the friends I did hang out with were mostly talking shit about each other, or competing with each other, or quietly hoping that they would fall on their face, living in New York City, in a cutthroat community. And so I remember my 30th birthday, I really just felt this moment of this kind of universal understanding that belonging is the most powerful feeling as a human being, to both feel that exhale of I'm home, to feel the depth of the magic of our existence, and also the wings to help you fly.
Something about
I think for me,
Rada, she was an investment banker. When she was at a sports bar, she looked at everyone. They were all on their phones and all disconnected. And she said it wasn't like a big drama thing. It was just a subtle wake-up call. And she said, I need to do something about it. And so she really took time to figure out, and with some help with friends, she came up with dancing and yoga in the mornings before going off to work. And it built to this thing that she calls, what's it called again? Daybreaker. Yeah, she started Daybreaker. And now it's over in 25 cities across the world, a dozen colleges, campuses, 450. Someone turn this microphone down because it's really hot. Anyone?
You have to do the microphones.
Okay. I don't know. Sorry. It's
you just keep talking. I'll figure it out.
Okay. It's I can turn mine off. There's 400 over close to 500,000 of these community members now. Well, back in 2017. She is a self-proclaimed community architect. She came up with that term. She says communities are built person by person through thoughtful design and architect energetic connection points. The best architects think about materials, design, light and space, and community. Community architects are no different. The need to belong is fundamental. We'll go to the next slide.
Okay. You did have a note on here about her growing up, and I did want to mention that really quick. So she actually grew up as an immigrant, and as a part of her early experience, her family was a part of community and were community developers as first-generation immigrants. And so I feel like that her past really motivated her to recognize, or it really allowed her to recognize that, oh, the way that I'm doing things is not working for me.
Right.
And then she started looking around and she said, oh, the way that a lot of people are doing things, it's not working for them either. Mm-hmm. And that's what, sort of brought this book along, so. All right, and so the next slide, you may be familiar with the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Do you want to?
Actualization, desire to become the most that one can be.
Okay, so, and I'll start at the very bottom, but it's logical needs. So the Maslow's hierarchy of needs it demonstrates what do we need to just be self-actualized. And so before we can even get started, we need physiological needs met, which is things like air, water, shelter, sleep, clothing, and reproduction. Those are really important in the bottom tier.
Safety needs, personal security, employment, resources, health, property.
Love and belonging, friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection.
Esteem, respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom.
And then self-actualization, which is the desire to become the most that one can be. And so she mentions Maslow. She called him Uncle Maslow or something.
Yes.
But she mentions and she brings about this Maslow's hierarchy of needs and indicates how important it is for our development. But she develops her own hierarchy. I think you sent me a different image for this, and I didn't.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
So the basic human need would be food, water, shelter, belonging, love, and positive touch.
Keep reading because I can't really read that.
Okay. It's also here. I put it.
Oh, I want that. Yeah.
Physical and mental.
Okay, so physical and mental is physical health, consensual sex, job, home, security, presence, and cultivation of curiosity.
Purpose is service orientation, engaging in an action that benefits humankind.
Joy, playfulness, creativity, wonder, and mindfulness. So this is her version of the hierarchy of needs. And within that, community plays a vital role at every stage.
Across all 4 levels of the updated hierarchy of needs is one unifying ingredient, community.
Yeah. And so that kind of gives us an understanding of what is she trying to convey. And with this particular book, that's just the very basics of the book. But
and the one thing about a lot of Unity people, and it's the metaphysical tradition, is pretty much the same way with gentle self-awareness. A lot of us are pretty self-aware, or getting there.
Yeah, she starts out with, if you are planning on being a community architect, or you want to develop more connection and belonging, you have to go within first. You can't just start trying to go out there. And as I was reading the book, I was like, oh, that is definitely a Unity thing. And because the answers aren't out there. The answers are within, and then we begin to actualize them and bring them forward. So you have to go, it says you have to go in to go out. It's the first message. And we have a quote from her as well.
We live in a time where we forget what we did yesterday on our social media feeds race us through our lives.
And I would say that, maybe not, we do have several young people here today, but I would say maybe the young people can relate to this. I'm not sure, I've talked to a lot of the people that go to this church, and most people don't spend a lot of time on social media, which I try not to spend a lot of time on social media as well. I would say that one of the focuses for this book is to teach people that the hits that you get from social media they're not, what would you say? They're more artificial. They're not real connection.
Correct.
And that it is really important for, like Unity of Springfield, to develop a community where we are engaging with one another in a meaningful way. Before we go on to the next one, does anybody have any comments or questions about what we've covered so far? I know we kind of went through just a lot of information down.
I'm sure you're getting to this. Or do I need Mike?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll just go ahead, James.
Okay. All right. This is the farthest that I've ever had. We're going to get through all the slides.
Yeah. We weren't sure if we were going to get through all of these. It's a lot of information.
Okay, and so the next one that we're going to take a look at from the book is recognizing personal history. And you should have a life timeline handout. Does that read? I think there might be more than 15.
I don't have one.
You do not have one.
Have what?
The handout?
Oh.
Okay.
And we can also get you one at the
Yeah.
end of the class if we.
Yeah, we'll print out
Yeah,
print
we'll
out
print
more
out
for
more.
anybody because this is really something that I would like you to take home rather than try to fill out here. This is one of the exercises in the book that are it's one of the introspection exercises that really it took me several days to fill out. It wasn't just a one and done thing. In fact, I was finding myself even like 4 or 5 days after I had thought I was done, things would pop into my head, and I'm like, oh, I should go put that on the on the thing. So what you'll see in the handout is this is something that you can fill out, and it goes through in the beginning, growing up, schools, loves and losses, most recent, and then now. There's instructions right there. And these are instructions directly from the book. And then there's some questions that you can answer about those. And I did not give you a lot of space, a lot of lines, but I think that's about the amount of lines that she gives us in the book.
Yeah, we'll look at the next one. So that's her.
Okay, this is her version of the timeline. This is the one that she did herself. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not on.
Yeah.
This was the most amazing experience that I did out of this book. I mean, it was phenomenal because I had tried to do a timeline with my history, but I hadn't done it on a graphy thing.
Yeah.
And this way, when you put it on, you'll get down, so far, and then you'll go, oh, well, that happened too. And it gives you space to go back and fill it out. So I would really encourage everybody to do this because it is such a dynamic exercise. I just really, really loved it.
And it's not boring because it's not a straight line.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, your life is not a straight line.
Did you also find when you were filling it out, like a day or two later, something popped in your head, like, oh, I need to go put that on the. That was my experience. So.
Well, yeah. But see, I did, before I got the book, I did a Mind Valley quest with her.
Oh, okay.
And so, it was going through a process with her for 17 days. And so it was different than the book, but you got to know her and her background.
Yeah.
And so, but this was mind-boggling to me because it just in that format was so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And then to go back and fill it in instead of just having a straight line and you try and fill in lines that you don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked this exercise. I liked all of she has a lot of exercises and a lot of practices in this book. The book you could probably read, well, I actually read it through the first time in one day, just one night. And it was really, so it's an easy book to read, but if you're going to do like the actual practices from the book, give yourself, I would say a few weeks at the very least.
And you can maybe go back to it. Even if you go through the book, you can still go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way she's writing for everyone, and including someone like me. I'm not an avid reader. I really have a hard time keeping, all the words start to blend together. So this allows me to be able to focus.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun pictures and a lot of, I enjoyed the book. Okay, and we are going to do, well, Bobby's going to lead, I think, a spear group or
like a book club.
Yeah, with this book, which you would be able to go through all the practices. For 3 weeks, we don't want to just bombard you. If here's more papers, and take a moment and fill them out.
So we're trying to give you an appetite of the book club that
Yeah.
we're going to start. Of course, we don't have the specific times yet. But this part right here, the green ego, red ego, is my favorite section of the book because it seems to be something that we all tend to struggle with. I feel like all human beings, so you can go to the next slide if you want. So the green ego stands up for you, wants what's best for you, maintains self-esteem, operates from a place of abundance, driven and passionate. But what is the red ego?
You let me do the red ego. So the red ego is afraid, holds you back, makes you judge yourself in the world, makes you a bad listener, scared of being wrong, always trying to prove yourself. So that's the red ego. We talk a lot about the ego, within Unity conversations, and that's why I was like, a lot of this book really parallels some of our Unity conversations. And so, when we're looking at the two different versions of ego, I actually like, which Unity I think is pretty good at, but I actually like seeing the ego as not just this bad thing, but that we can gain and have benefits from our ego self. Our ego self really is the part of ourselves that keeps us safe. It doesn't make the greatest leader, but it certainly is something that can benefit us when we're paying attention to it and putting it in its place, its rightful place.
Right.
Any other comments about that?
Something that we didn't put on there, but the green ego is kind of like your hoorah-rah cheerleader, like, you can do it, you can do anything. But then the red ego, it's the one where it like bottles things up, doesn't share when it needs help, and hides behind pride. So we know how pride hurts us a lot. So
Yeah. Does anybody want to talk about the ego before we move on to the mean girls? Microphone.
Dawn.
Let's go back to that.
Yeah, this idea of the green ego reminds me very much of the idea of the higher self,
Mm-hmm.
the God self, the divine part of us. And this is the actual, for me personally, this is the actual connection I have with divinity. This is the higher self, the part of where I get to touch God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
I'll take
Anybody else comments on the green or red ego? Any stories about your green or red egos?
Don't
The red ones are fun.
Don't start.
Makes life interesting. Okay. All right, we can move on to the Mean Girls.
all right, so if anyone knows the movie Mean Girls, show of hands. Okay, I feel like most of us do. So the ones that don't, Mean Girls were like, it's a movie about these girls that are the bullies in the high school, and there's a girl from the outside, and she kind of gets entangled with the Mean Girls, and she becomes one of them. And then it's a life lesson at the end that they all celebrate their individualities, but you can tell that Radha's part of that maybe.
Generation?
Yeah, like millennials, where we grew up watching that movie. So, of course, she uses this as her examples. I would like to say either mean people or even mean thoughts or actions. That's where, we try to navigate sometimes.
Well, I personally liked the Mean Girls because it gave me these wonderful little graphics. So the Mean Girls are comparison, perfection, and judgment.
They are best friends forever.
They also hate each other.
Yes.
Yeah. So
They secretively hate each other.
So since I am doing class with you want to talk about comparison?
Oh yeah, my favorite word for comparison is, or saying, is the thief of joy is comparison. So like anytime someone gets on social media and shares their happiness, that's where the red ego comes in. We're like, ugh. They're trying to, make their lives so much better than mine, and then you have to catch yourself and be like, no, I need to celebrate that. So comparison. Do we have actual words for that?
Well, we have right here.
Oh yeah, comparison separates. Judgment disapproves. Perfectionism nitpicks. And again, they're all best friends.
Yeah. And so, like what you were saying, so these Mean Girls are aspects of that red ego.
Mm-hmm.
And they bully our authentic selves. They keep us from being authentic with I mean, living authentic lives, with ourselves, but also with other people. So they have a profound impact on how we develop community and how we, live our lives within community. So that's why she focuses on, these three mean girls, mean people.
These mean actions can be responsible for our anxiety. They condition us to judge everything we think and do when we follow them. We drift further away from our authentic selves and start focusing on our attention on what others are doing and whether they are doing it better than us or if they are doing it right.
And I would say that these three are just like the me, But in contrast to them, we have soul sisters, or brother, or family, or people. And these are inspiration, gratitude, and curiosity.
The opposite of those mean girls, mean thoughts, or even mean moments would be the soul sisters. They can also be your soul family. They are inspiration, gratitude, and curiosity. They set 2 tables down from the mean girls. You always have to walk past these mean girls' table and make a conscious decision to keep walking past them as they call out to you, hello, hello, hello. But once you've made it past their table, you realize that the soul sisters are even more powerful.
Yeah, and I really liked how she contrasted these. So inspiration, that gets rid of comparison. And gratitude, that gets rid of, that allows you to satiate the voice of perfection. And curiosity allows you to satiate that judgment.
Right.
And I really liked that comparison. I mean, I don't know if it's universally true, but I liked it. I was like, oh, that's clever. So.
And the part that I say that we all can, we deal with all 3 of these things. But I will say, instead of judging yourself and others, you become curious about why you feel judgmental in the first place, and move your awareness towards a place of curiosity. Why do I feel this way? Why am I judging this person? Why am I judging myself in this way? Can I learn more about this rather than judge it? Curiosity will set you free.
All right. Does anybody want to comment before we move on from the mean girls or the...
Has anyone ever had mean girls in their lives? When I'm saying mean girls, mean thoughts, mean actions. In your head. All right. Anyone want to share? Anyone want to share?
Fun conversations about the red heater.
Oh.
We got there.
I don't want to sit at any of their tables because they're already perfect. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, I guess, I kind of grew up with, in a house where, you always had to be good and, be quiet and, children are to be seen, not heard. I mean, I just grew up in a very, house like that. And I think I carried that critical voice with me into adulthood. So it wasn't, and then, I attracted somebody that continued that. It was like they were projecting themselves onto me. And it was like learning to not listen to my inner critical voice was really important to make room for the gratitude. And I really liked that you use that word that it gets rid of joy when you start doing comparison.
Yes.
Because you can't live in yourself. You can't live in that moment if I'm looking at you and deciding whether you're good or not, or I want to be like you or not. So we have to, that going inward and finding our own connection to God, and then that's where our joy, inspiration, and gratitude and curiosity comes in. Because you never know what you're going to find if you start living that way. But you do have to realize that critical voice is not always the truth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know I found myself having conversations with people, even in Unity, we're not perfect. I love the fact that we're imperfectly perfect.
Yeah.
But I remember having a conversation with someone, and I will say we catch ourselves. We really need to catch ourselves when we say, well, we used to do it this way. oh, I remember when we did this. And it really starts to take away, and it eats away at what you're possibly focusing right then and there.
Right.
Because whenever I'm like, oh, well, we can go back to doing the things that we used to do, or we can be inspired and do something new and innovative. So I really, have to catch myself, with that comparison thing, because even in conversations, it can be not so edifying.
Yeah.
And we have to, in Unity, we have to always be, what's the word, perfect with our words, or mindful of what we say.
Impeccable.
Yes, impeccable with our speech. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that that's what all of this inner work does, and just having conversations like this, is that it allows us to sit at the different table. We don't have to sit at the Mean Girls table.
Right.
We can sit at the Soul Sisters table. Thanks, Jen. So yeah, anything else about this? Is anybody? Oh yeah, go ahead. Thank you, Albie.
Okay. This is kind of hard for me, but it's important for me to say, in my healing process, every part of me that I choose to ignore is going to come out worse and bite me. And part of my process was to find the mean girls in me and accept them and love them and cherish that is there, and to listen to them too, just like everything else, because they have something to say about keeping me safe. So I don't know, I just have to
Yes.
have to add that.
Oh yeah, and I would say that we're not talking about getting rid of the Mean Girls table. We don't want to get rid of it. I mean, I was saying earlier that the ego really can, the red ego itself can keep us safe. It is the protector, but we don't necessarily have to eat at the Mean Girls table. I think that that's more of what.
It also means that you don't have to. You can listen to them, but you don't want to take up residence there. At first, maybe you need to, and I know for myself, I have to walk past them to see what's better on the other side. And I can, once I feel strong enough, I can go back and revisit them and not be bullied by them.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it means. Is like, don't be guided by those mean thoughts or those mean actions. You can see where they come from, and also most of the time, anyone that you have any disagreements, there's a lot more things that you have in common than you have not in common. So you can relate to those mean girls. Of course, I feel like all of us at the table can relate to each other. But to really take residence with those mean girls and to practice the way the mean girls do things, that's where it gets really unhealthy. So maybe you can join the mean girls and be like, hey, listen, these soul sisters they got it going on. Maybe we can start doing this instead. You can be an influencer in those thoughts.
Yeah. So, and I want to comment directly to what you were saying about, accepting those things. In Unity, we talk about affirmations and denial. So an affirmation is that positive prayer or positive statement that we make. A denial is not a denial of reality. It's a denial that things have power over us. And I would say that in this context, this comparison, perfectionism, and judgment, it's not denial that it's not denying their existence. It's denying that they have to hold the power in our lives. And so, I would say in that respect, that's one way of looking at it without denying their existence. And another thing that I wanted to share related to what you were saying, one of the things that I do personally when those thoughts, those judgmental thoughts or those perfectionist thoughts or comparison thoughts pop into my head, and I don't know if I would have framed it this way until I wrote the book, but I've been doing this practice for a long time where I just say, well, thank you for sharing and thank you for trying to keep me safe. But then I don't have to live out those thoughts, those fear-based thoughts, those egoic like move me in the wrong direction type thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it goes back to that curiosity instead of judgment. You can go back to the mean thoughts, whatever. Being curious, why am I like this? Why am I judging others? Or why am I so, mean towards others or whatever? It's okay to be curious and go, in order to know yourself, you have to be able to confront those things. You can't ignore it, and I totally agree with you, Wendy. You cannot ignore those things. Because it actually will eventually rear its ugly head. I always have like this analogy of a rug, and you can sweep it under the rug, but eventually that becomes so big that you're going to trip over it. You're going to fall on your face.
Like that.
So you cannot ignore those things. It is very important that we don't ignore those things.
Yeah.
One of the things with that comparison, inspiration, criticism, my mom criticized everything I did. And 20 years later, when I had my own children, or 15 years later, when I had my own children, I confronted her with that. And her idea was, well, I was just trying to inspire you to look at it differently and do it, see if there's a better way to do it. Totally backfired. I totally stopped talking to my mom about anything that was important at all. But when I heard that, what she was trying to do was totally not coming across to me, sometimes we don't realize that we're being the bad girl. Sometimes we think that we're trying to do something that's good, and we just don't see it.
Yeah. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I feel like sometimes we have good intentions, but sometimes our delivery falls short. But in order for us to grow is to keep communication. And I don't know exactly how it turned out for you and your mom, but if you allow conversations to take place and try and stay away from that judgment and make it more curious. Why, I will say it allowed me to open my curiosity towards my parents as well, to understand what was their history. And we'll get into this a little bit more because everyone has a backpack. Just remember that. Everyone has their baggage. And in order for you to understand someone, sometimes you have to know their baggage. And if they allow you to see their baggage, you can't force them to show you. But in order for you to grow, sometimes you have to be able to adapt and learn from others. And even if it's like those conversations that are icky, it allows you to understand their past and why they maybe operate the way they do.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions about either the Mean Girls or the Soul Sisters? Is this helpful?
Did anyone take? We're gonna have laser pointers or little buttons.
I can laser I just don't do it out there.
I'll put some.
Alright, so the next one is labels, and she talks a lot about how do people use labels, like introvert and extrovert. Is there anyone here that is an introvert? Everybody's an extrovert. I guess that's okay. There's tough. I should have asked extrovert first because the introverts are like. Extrovert. Who's an extrovert?
That's a label in itself.
Yeah, aren't we all just a mix of both?
Yeah.
There we go.
That's there. Thank you.
That is where we're going.
So humans are not one size fit all. Yeah. We cannot just be one thing or the other. It's not black and white. We have a lot of gray matter.
Yeah. However, I'm an introvert. I have to struggle to go out and be around people and to interact with people. It always takes work for me to do that. my preference would be to stay home and never see anybody. So we know, the part of us, what
Yeah.
are natural, and whether that's there because of nature or nurture or lack of nurture, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you still go out, so clearly there is, you recognize the need for connection and community, which is sort of the point of this book.
Right.
And so she puts it on sort of a spectrum, and she says if you are on the extreme of one end, so if you are on the extreme of the introvert, that is insanity. And if you are on the extreme of extrovert, that is insanity. If you're not living somewhere in the middle, if you're all here, you're probably, if you're all here and you feel like an introvert, you're definitely somewhere in the middle, or you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. I feel like I'm an extrovert most of the time, but man, do I people out. Like, I'm like, oh, I love people, but I just need to, like, focus inward. Because that goes right back to the whole looking in to go out. Like, you still have to be able to have that peace and grounding. One thing that I took some notes. Labels are best understood when we use them to better understand ourselves as we relate to one another. And I think you should talk about this part.
Okay, well, it's just, the only reason why I mentioned, I was reading the book, and this part, I was like, it frustrated me. So I would have considered myself more introverted than extroverted. I would have put myself on a spectrum even before reading this. But one thing she doesn't take into consideration are things like sensory overstimulation. She doesn't take into consideration stims. She doesn't take into sensory processing deafness, which a lot of people have. Everybody in this room starts talking, and I try having a conversation with you. Guess what? I'm not having a conversation with you because I can't do it. And so I wanted to broaden the conversation as well, because it's like, she wanted to make it a very either-or type situation. She doesn't bring this topic up at all. But there are certain circumstances, there are certain even events that take place here that I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not going to that. It's not for me. And I think that in developing community, recognizing this is for me and this is not for me is really important as well. Because we can develop connection based off of our needs.
So I think a lot of that is because she is extroverted, and sometimes us extroverts tend to take over the conversation or the room, and we really have to dial it down sometimes because it's about conversations. It's not about talking to someone, it's talking with them. And so I'm always constantly being reminded by the words of my mom. She says, there's a reason why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You listen twice as much as you speak, and I talk a lot. But in order to have a conversation, a relationship with someone, you have to work on conversation and listening. For example, when someone says that they might connect better one-on-one than in a larger group, they aren't separating themselves. They're just giving you clues in order to better connect with others. So, sometimes those one-on-ones are better than a whole group setting. And that's kind of why the Unity, TEA, it is allowing us to get to know one another.
Tell people what Unity is.
Unity, for those who don't know, it's a social interaction of people at Unity. And we meet usually on the second Saturday of each month. And it's a second Saturday social. And a lot of people were seeing the TEA, the T part, as like something fancy. It's just a play on words. We are not fancy at all.
No.
But it is something that allows us to get to have conversations with one another and get to, see about the likes and dislikes and connect with others. And then from there, you make connections outside. So if you like that group setting, keep coming. If you want to connect with someone that they like gardening, I like gardening. Let's garden together, or let's talk to each other. You like crafts, I like crafts. It allows people to connect and grow from there. And that's really, and a lot of that started with this book. And I was like, okay, this has to start sometime. And now is the time, even if it's not perfected. And I'm like, I'm not asking for perfection. I just want to start something and get something started, because there was so many people in Unity I would pass by on a Sunday or volunteering, and I'm like, I have no idea who these people are. I know them maybe by name, but I don't know who they are, and I want to get to know them. And maybe some people don't want to get to know each other, that's fine. But I have that desire to get to know people, and better than just through volunteering, because sometimes we're working still. So you're like, hey, I like this or I dislike this, that's fine. But you don't get to dive deep into conversations sometimes.
All right, and since we are out of time, but I want to get through these slides. I'm going to go through these. We will go through these next slides really quickly. I'm so used to teaching by myself. All right, so she talks a lot about the attention economy. That the phones and scrolling on the phones, and how so many companies, they study psychology to get you to sit there and do this. That's how they make their money. And so, so companies spend billions to understand human psychology just so that they can create scenarios like this.
Companies fight for your attention. We all know that we are a product. We are a product of these companies.
And so ways that you can get around this is limit social media interaction. I know her example was she took social media off of her phone and only does it on the computer. That seems to help her still be engaged, but not be engaged all of the time.
Right.
And then, I guess that's it. That's the two things that she mentions in the book. And then she also says, listen to your body, because we may be turning to things like social media, and I would say, or any other addictive behavior, we may be turning to things like this because we're not listening to our body and recognizing the actual needs. Are you sleepy, hungry, PMSing? Not today. Stressing, feeling cold or hot, or there may be some other thing going on, and you need to listen to your body to know, hey, this is what it needs right now. And when we're just turning to social media or some other addictive behavior, that can also cause illness. And so the basis of this whole class today is just to give you the introduction. There's a lot more, and it's also to let you know that if you want more connection and belonging and community, you really have to go within first, because that's the only way you'll know what you will find fulfilling, really.
Right.
And it's the only way that you can really be engaged authentically with others. So next week we will, actually, you know what I'm going to do? Because of time, I'm going to go around with the basket, and if you are online and you would like to give to Unity of Springfield, you can do so at www.unityofspringfield.org. I will go around, I'll pick up the pens if you grab the pen, and Bobby will read this and go through the announcements. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Are we on the same page? Yeah.
James, don't we go till 10:15?
Yeah.
Technically we go till 10, according to the website. I've always been till 10.
10:15.
We go to 10:15?
Yeah, we go till 10:15. It's fine. I will say something about, we did a visioning a couple of months ago, seems like forever ago. But the one thing that was very uniting in all of us was going out in the community. Community. And I will say that we did have a sign-up sheet, and 2 people signed up, but that I'm not comparing that. I will say sometimes we don't know what to do, so we don't know what we're signing up for. But I will say that it's something that I feel like this will allow us to utilize some of the tools to say, okay, let's play darts and see if we hit a target with the community, and that's just trying something, just doing something out there. And I feel like a lot of us can give back to the community, and that's really what Unity is all about. It's not just for ourselves, it's for everyone around us and outside of us. And so it really, I take it as an encouragement that people want community. We do want a community. We want to grow our community. That is the biggest thing that we need now more than ever, especially after the pandemic or during the pandemic. a lot of people realized that it was kind of a wake-up call. Like, oh wow, I don't like staying at home all the time. Even though I do like staying at home a lot of the time, I still needed that interaction, that connection, that community. And boy, did I find a community in Unity. It really, I love my Unity family. So, does anyone have any questions? Because I know we can still talk a little bit about this. What is important to you and your growth? Is it something that you look inward? Do you look outward a lot? What is your struggles? Some interaction. Anyone?
Bueller.
I've got something about it. I don't know like this. I think if you look at a lot of different things in comparison of different types of belonging and different types of community, I believe some of the most successful people that are happy at their job is because they have a great community established there. And I know, like at my job, they work way beyond extra to keep things of a great atmosphere that people want to come to, and creating like a family environment where family and those personal mental health wellness issues are above their dollar, which is unusual to finding companies, but I think when I think back of what are my top jobs that I've worked with, always been companies that also know how to create powerful community. So it's your job or organizations or your church or wherever, I think that's what brings people back.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, with what you were saying too, is that we are all unique, and so the way that we engage and feel belonging is going to be different for me as it is for you, or you know, like it's not going to be the same. And that's one of the things that I like about Unity as well, is because there's more than one option. You know, like there's A group, there's Unity, there's volunteering at the shelter. There's all these different opportunities, you know, that are different and that are unique to each individual.
So, I don't think everybody is so different from me. So, actually, the journey that I am on right now and figuring out is, it was very hard for me to get around people and trust people and begin to move out into the world and to feel any safety. I'm not sure that I do. I'm not sure that I still do. But the process that I am on right now, is trying to change the way that I relate to people. And the process I'm on right now is, you know, you're talking about to go in, is to be absolutely aware and honest and not try to hide what I'm feeling from myself. And it was like they did the women's group or some of the, you know, there's been a lot of things going on, and I haven't gone to almost any of them lately. It was like when the women's group were getting together, and when they talked about it afterwards, just listening inside of me, I was like, I hate those bitches. I don't want anything to do with them. They're hypocritical. Not one of them knows one thing about me. Not one of them cares anything about me. And again, that's not saying that's how I feel. That's saying that that's in here.
Yeah.
And so with that inside me, it's kind of like my decisions to be a part of other people are being based on how I can help them, what I can do for them, and it's wearing, and I really am not, I don't get a lot from being around other people. But wanting to change that, to move into a new place, requires me to have to listen to all of that constantly right now, you know, as we're sitting in this room, to say what is going on. And I don't know if that's helpful to other people, because I know how to get along with you guys. But there's only one person in my life that I have ever connected with, and that is the man sitting next to me. And the rest of you aren't even my species. So for those of us who have that loneliness, we can be around people and be as lonely as ever. And how to do that, I'm just saying that's what I'm doing right now to try to find a connection.
Yeah. When you're looking at the Mean Girls head on and recognizing, this isn't really helping me gain that sense of belonging, which is sort of the point of looking at the green and red ego and looking at the soul sisters and the mean girls, or the soul family and the mean peoples.
You were talking about the
You're on.
It's on.
community, outward community movement within Unity, or that desire, and you know, it has occurred more, and there's still a palpable, I think, desire for that to continue. And it's like a bi-directional thing about if we're reaching out and trying to be helpful, it's also self-help. And a discovery, like you say, throwing out things like, we don't know if this is going to work, but being daring enough to try things. And I'm really impressed by people within Unity and in other areas that take that risk.
Yeah. And here's the thing, if you start something new, you're never gonna, like, you never know if something's gonna work until you do it.
Right.
Like, if you have an idea, just do it. If it's not that, you know, like Louise say, somebody that was very influential in my life, she would say, you know, make a decision. And if it is the wrong decision, then make a different decision.
Right.
But if you don't do anything, guess what gets done? You know, guess how involved you get? You don't get anywhere. And so I think that's, you know, having these resources, like the resources in Belong and the resources that we have in Community and Unity, I think is so important. We do have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to go past the basket. But.
Yeah, because we don't, I mean, honestly, what is the saying? You can't fail without trying. Like, or what's the saying? If you try and fail, it'd be better to try and fail than never try at all. Never explore those things. It's better to get some action out there and try something than to not try it at all. And it also is inward too. It's better to try something inward and try it on yourself, love yourself, get through those things yourself before you try to work on anyone else or help anyone else. There's no way that you can help yourself or anyone else without helping yourself first. So next week we'll be looking at our path, intentions, and your, what's a VIA? I guess VIA. What does that stand for, James?
Vision and action.
Vision and action.
What's the Venn diagram from the book?
Yeah, the Venn diagram.
Yep.
We'll be talking about energy and vibes and dosing. And dopamine, what was dose is an acronym for dopamine. What's the other? Oxytocin.
Oh, wrong way.
Serotonin, and I don't know what the E stood for. Anyways, we will be diving into that next week.
Those are the things that make you, you're feeling good, so you want to go back, then you're smart.
Right.
And Bobby, I want to say, one of the things that octogenarians, that they interviewed say is that they wish, one of their regrets was that they didn't do more, that they didn't dare to do more. So that's one of the regrets that people have at the end of their life is, I didn't, you know, there were so many things that I thought about, but I wasn't brave enough to do them. And they're like, I should have been brave enough.
Right.
I have one more comment too. Actually, does anybody need one of the handouts? I don't know that they need.
Yeah, we need to make more copies.
How many more copies?
4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Does anybody have a blank
Go
one?
ahead and do 5.
5?
Yeah.
Does anybody have a blank one that I can copy or easily? Thank you.
All right. So for announcements. Special music, John singing Into the Mystic by Van Morrison. I guess I don't have to read that part. This is for the service.
That's great.
Okay. We'd like to thank Simone and her helpers for putting on another successful spring fashion boutique. There are some clothes left in the fellowship hall, as you can see, if you'd like to take a look before you leave today. Today is the first Sunday for our one item, every person, every Sunday feeds many campaign to keep our community covered, stocked. It's okay if you forgot today. The good news is you'll get another chance every Sunday. There is a shopping cart out by the cupboard to place your item in. If you want to help remembering, there are refrigerator magnets in the lobby. Feel free to take one on your way out. Meditation is tonight at 6 p.m. and is open to everyone. The monthly board meeting is tomorrow, May 20th at 6 p.m. Everyone is welcome to attend. There will be no chair yoga this week. It will resume next week on May 30th. Do you know we have pickleball in our parking lot? Last year, a group from church created this space for all to enjoy. This means if you want to learn how to play pickleball, you can. If you already know how to play, you can come play. There is a beginner session tomorrow, May 20th at 5 p.m. And open play is on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. All are welcome to play. Please come join us for community through music. Last Saturday concert and fire pit this Saturday, May 25th at 7 p.m. This is a live music from our outdoor stage featuring local artists with a focus on original music. Bring your lawn chairs and come listen to John Russ and Carson Davis, who will be sharing their music, and Don Fredrickson will share his poetry. Next Sunday at 9:15 in the New Thought and World Religion class will be James and I presenting our part 2 on The Both Belong. For our May Earth Care, we are accepting donations to purchase indoor and outdoor recycling containers. We need to raise $560 to cover the costs. We are also selling raffle tickets for a custom portrait of your pet, and all proceeds will go towards this effort. An amazing local artist, my friend Laura Inglesby, donated the gift, which is valued at $150. So, and it's $1 per ticket, or online it's $10 for 10 tickets. On June 1st, the staff would like to invite all volunteers to an appreciation luncheon at 11:30 a.m. This is for anyone who has spent their time, shared their talent, or donated their treasures in support of this ministry. If you plan to, okay, I guess that's it.
I think it probably says if you plan to attend RSVP, maybe. You can do that online, or you can just let the office know that. Yeah.
They just need to know what counts so that they have enough food for everybody.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, that's what makes the most sense to me is RSVP. All right, we good to go? Like we can.